Now to the details. One person is reported dead and another in critical condition in Alavanyo in the Volta region after they were shot by unidentified assailants. The victims were shot while working on their farms on Friday. There are claims the gunmen may be from the rival town of Nkonya, but this cannot be immediately confirmed. Volta regional correspondent Mauli Yevu Agbi named the deceased only as Yakubu. He joins us on the line now with the very latest on the incident. Okay, we're still trying to raise Mauli on the phones, and as soon as we get him, we'll get some more clarity about this shooting incident in Alavanyo, which we understand one person is dead. The deceased we only have been able to identify as Yakubu. We are told the assailants may have been from Nkonya. We are not too sure, but Mauli is on the line now. Good evening, Mauli, and thanks for joining us. Hello, Mauli.
Hello.
Okay, so what more can you tell us about this incident?
Yeah, earlier this morning, two men whose names we know as Yakubu and Gomozio were shot in their farms at Alavanyo Vedede, which is a village between Alavanyo Peme and Nkonya Tai, which has been the area of conflict for several years. Now, Yakubu died right on the spot. Gomozio, who sustained gun injury, was able to escape and was assisted by community members who brought him home. Now, the police, as we speak, have begun the investigation into the conflict, but they are not able to specifically tell if this latest attack can be linked to the age-old land dispute between
exactly, which is what I was coming to, because we know that the people of Alavanyo have had issues with their neighbors from Nkonya. So really, even though it's not been identified now, is there any possibility that probably that could have led to this attack?
Exactly. In the morning I spoke with the paramount chief of Alavanyo, who is in the person of Toby Cheje Atakra, and according to him, the hands from Nkonya cannot be ruled out because of recent development. Judging from just a few weeks ago, there was some sporadic exchange of gunfire between the two communities, which was the police had to come in to calm tempers down. So barely 2 weeks ago, there was those attacks. So judging from that, for the weekend attack, Nkonya cannot be ruled out. Such attacks and reprisal attacks have been the trend for the past 9 decades of this conflict between the two communities, which started as back as 1927. There have been several attempts also by authorities to resolve the conflict between the two sides.
Exactly.
The last success story of this effort was between 2005 2009 as a result of the peace committee led by a former moderator of the EP Church, very Reverend Dr. Livingston Nkrumah. Within that space of time, we saw some relative peace between the two communities. But from nowhere, this attack began altogether.
Okay, but
other schools of thought is that the criminal elements who might be taking advantage of the situation and be perpetuating violence against each other.
So what have the police had to say about this latest incident?
For now, police will not give much information because they are still investigating the issue and they wouldn't want to jeopardize their investigation. So for now, they are not giving much information, but they say they are investigating the issue, and perhaps a few days to come we might be getting some information shortly.
Okay. All right, Mauli, thank you very much for that update. Mauli Yevu Agbi is our correspondent in the Volta region, bringing us up to speed about that shooting incident in Alavanyo, where we understand one person is dead and one is in critical condition. We'll keep following that story and we'll keep you updated. But away from that, the British High Commissioner to Ghana, John Benjamin, has justified the clarification of a recent statement put out by the Narcotics Control Board on the arrest of a Ghanaian lady in London for drug trafficking. According According to him, it was meant to correct false information put out by NACOP. He, however, says the High Commission has no interest in meddling in the local politics of the country and would not want to be drawn into it. John Benjamin was speaking at the 10th anniversary celebration of Imani Ghana here in Accra.
Imani Ghana was founded in 2004 with a mission to subject all government policies to rational choice, due diligence, vested interest and value for money. 10 years later, Imani is now ranked as the most influential in Ghana and the 4th best think tank in Africa. Speaking at the 10th anniversary celebrations in Accra, British High Commissioner to Ghana John Benjamin clarified what has been termed as the British government's interference in Ghana's internal politics with regards to the ongoing cocaine saga.
And to those who accused us of interfering in internal affairs by issuing a statement about the case, our only statement, I might add, then I'm sorry to tell them that we have every right publicly to correct an equally public prior erroneous claim about our involvement in this case. That is precisely one of the things that diplomatic missions are there for. We would not expect the Ghana High Commission in London to stay silent in the face of false information about Ghana in the UK. And we would certainly not accuse the Ghana High Commission of supposed interference for making such a correction, and we do not accept the allegation against us in this case. The right place for all relevant information to be aired is in court. Trials take place in courts, not in the media. I can repeat that the person arrested was not carrying a Ghanaian diplomatic passport. I honestly don't know where that claim came from in the first place. It did not come from us. It wasn't true at the start, and therefore it still isn't true now.
Addressing the issue of corruption, John Benjamin suggested minimizing the opportunities for it to happen by creating strong institutions and setting a culture that shames corruption and blowing the whistle to expose it.
If any public servant anywhere in any country appears to be living way beyond their official means, shouldn't they be required to explain where their wealth came from rather than glorying in it without question? And if they can't readily explain where their wealth came from, shouldn't they fear for their job? But I would argue that the cultural aspect of tackling corruption is even more important than these mechanisms. Here's a basic, simple question. If an official, whether here in Ghana, in the UK, or anywhere else, is tempted to steal from the public purse or solicit an illegal payment, do they instinctively know deep down that what they are doing is wrong? I couldn't help noticing last weekend that the newly elected president of Indonesia flew in economy and checked in normally with other members of the public when flying to Singapore for a private family engagement. I lived in Indonesia as a diplomat for 4 years in the late 1980s, when the corruption pertaining to the then leader of that country was almost legendary. You just can't underestimate the message that new president has just sent to his people and his government. Simple but powerful. Whenever I fly to London from here at public expense, I fly economy, not business, nor first class. Although I have to say that just occasionally I'm surprised at who I see flying up front, presumably at someone else's expense.
5 organizations were awarded by Imani for improvement in service delivery to Ghanaians. They include the Ghana Stock Exchange, the National Health Insurance Authority, the Ghana Shippers Authority, the Register General's Department, and the Environmental Protection Agency. Founder and CEO of Imani Ghana, Franklin Kujo, expressed his appreciation to all stakeholders who have helped Imani since its inception.
3, 2, 1. Hip, hip, hip. Hip, 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 hip.
Well, let's stay with the British High Commissioner to Ghana a while longer. And John Benjamin at the Imani Anniversary Dinner also took issues with the phenomenon where some journalists expect cash handouts after covering events. Speaking on integrity in public office, the High Commissioner suggested that covering news is the job of a journalist and that if salaries are insufficient, that should be a problem for the journalists and their employers and not for the general public.
I read, listen to and watch the Ghanaian media every day, and they have an impressive and improving record in and commitment to uncovering alleged wrongdoing, for which I congratulate them. But what are we to think when certain journalists expect the famous Soli to cover our events? Isn't covering the news actually their job to start with? And if they aren't paid sufficiently for doing so, isn't that an issue between them and their employer rather than our or anyone else's problem? And if those journalists who pride themselves on reporting corruption in others then ask for unofficial payments themselves, isn't that just a touch hypocritical? An event or a story is either intrinsically newsworthy or it isn't. It doesn't become newsworthy because someone has paid for it. That isn't journalism, it's advertising. And advertising is perfectly legitimate in itself, of course, but it is a different professional activity. Now, I wonder if any of the media which report this speech tomorrow will include these comments of mine about this lack of probity by some of their own journalistic colleagues. Here's my challenge to my journalist friends. I doubt it, but go on, surprise me. And at the very least, you know now, officially, that you will never receive any Soli from the British High Commission.
Well, he threw the challenge and we did take the challenge and we put his story out. But away from that, let's go to Parliament, where debate on the 2015 budget statement focused mainly on the agric sector. Though members of Parliament from both sides agree agriculture plays a very important role in the economy, minority members of the House lamented over what they describe as the unfair treatment of farmers. The minority is meanwhile calling for the immediate release of the 3-year bonuses owed cocoa farmers.
The minority members of Parliament accused government of not prioritising the agric sector and, for that matter, the farmer. The evidence, they say, lies in the meagre budgetary allocation for the sector for the year 2015.
It is so important, the Speaker, the contribution that farmers of this country continue to make. And yet, this budget statement clearly shows that farmers and fishermen are not the priority of this budget. Why do I say so? If you take together the total amount of money allocated to the two ministries of Food and Agriculture and Fisheries, they come to only 484 million Ghana cedis out of the 44 billion allocated to all the sectors. That is only 1.1%. And Mr. Speaker, that is the lowest in the 6-year administration of the NDC government. This is the lowest percentage allocated to such a critical sector.
But the chairman of the Agric Committee in Parliament, Dr. Ahmed Yakubu, disagreed, citing tax waivers on some agric equipment as a demonstration of government's commitment.
The sector has also demonstrated some robustness in the last couple of years. It is a fact that food inflation has been relatively low in comparison with non-food inflation, clearly demonstrating that Ghanaians are paying more for non-food items than food items. Or, put it in another way, the rate of increase in price of food is far slower than the rate of increase in price of non-food items. That is a sector that is supporting Ghanaians and must be praised because it is robust. Mr. Speaker,
the budgetary allocation to the agric sector since 2012 has been less than 2%, with dire implications for food security. Members of Parliament, however, are expected to approve the 2015 budget statement next week. From Parliament in Osu, Aisha Ibrahim for Joy News.
And away from Parliament, as the country struggles to explore alternatives to the over-reliance on cocoa production and export, the Forest and Horticultural Crops Research Centre of the University of Ghana has been rallying farmers around on a common platform for a solution. The innovative platform has been established to facilitate interactions and learning among stakeholders in the agricultural sector to form a commodity chain leading to the promotion of agricultural value chain. Richard Kojunyako filed the following report.
According to the Forest and Horticultural Crops Research Centre of the University of Ghana, Ghana, as compared to other African economies, has a number of comparative advantages in citrus. These advantages include political stability, geographic location, and access to large regional and European markets, adequate seaports, good agricultural environment suitable for the cultivation of citrus, and different tree crops. The leader of the University of Ghana team, Dr. Godfred Hotsonyame, bemoaned how citrus farmers are going through frustrations because of poor market access due to increased incidence of pests and diseases.
Of late, there have been a lot of problems that citrus farmers are encountering. It has also been realized that research officer-driven research alone does not solve the problem, but there is a need for cooperation for the farmers to also participate in sharing the ideas. So if all the stakeholders are involved, then they will be able to know the real problems that are affecting the industry.
Coordinator of the innovative platform, Dr. Collins Francis Brentur, told a cross-section of the citrus farmers at Asemfosu, why the innovative platform was launched, that it aims to create awareness about a deadly citrus disease called citrus leaf spot, which is threatening the industry, and also find solutions to the numerous challenges militating against citrus farmers.
Farmers are losing minimum of 50 to about 100% of their fruits. And we have the antidote at the research center, so that through this platform we can share ideas and help the farmers to improve upon their agricultural practices and also solve the disease problem. The two main processors in Ghana have been complaining that they don't get the fruits. Farmers also have been complaining they don't get market. So there is a missing link. And we feel this platform, innovation platform, will help all the stakeholders come together, find the reason, the missing link, so that the citrus industry problem can be solved once and for all. As a nation, we have a lot to gain. If the citrus industry become established, it will serve as second to cocoa and give us foreign exchange.
The innovative platform, funded by FARA, comprises all stakeholders within the citrus value chain, consisting primarily of citrus growers, citrus fruit processing companies, researchers from various government and non-government institutions, policymakers, market women who sell citrus, agrochemical input dealers, transporters and harvesters. Richard Kwejonyako's report for Joy News.
You're welcome back. Now, at least 214 students of the Zebila Senior High School in the Boko West district of the Upper East region have been displaced after the boys' dormitory of the school was razed down by fire this morning. The fire started between 8 and 9 a.m. while the students were in class. Fire service officials who arrived at the scene later could not douse the flames early enough because they ran out of water in the course of fighting the fire. Students of the school, together with the members of the community, fought the fire by themselves in the absence of the fire officials. Some of the students who spoke to Joy News said they were helpless because they lost all their belongings with exception of those they took to class in the morning. Monies which include some of their fees and other valuables were all lost. The Zebula fire officer in charge of operations, Issa Bukari, says the cause of the fire is unknown until investigations are concluded. The National Service Scheme, a United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, in its 2014 report on least developed countries, says most of the world's poorest countries have failed to meet the Millennium Development Goals despite registering strong economic growth. The report indicates that the economic vicious cycles trapping the world's poorest countries must be reversed if the post-2015 development agenda to eradicate poverty by 2030 is to be met.
Africa alone has 34 least developed countries out of the 48 least developed countries in the world, with 16 of them in West Africa alone. The UNCTAD 2014 report establishes the Lao People's Democratic Republic as the only least developed country on track to achieving all 7 of the MDG targets. The report says least developed economies have failed to achieve structural changes despite having grown vigorously as a result of strong export prices and rising aid flows.
I think that one of the things that puts us in an enormously difficult position is the grip of international factors, the grip of foreign powers and interests on our fortunes. That really is what it is. Because if you look at the key difference, as the report discusses, between Asian least developed countries and African least developed countries, 2 things are obvious. One is that those are countries which have made more of a shift towards manufacturing, and these are countries which demand a lot more on domestic resources and regional economies than the global economy. So, for example, one of the points that the report makes is that the share of African ownership in the financial sector in Africa, banks and other financial institutions and financial market activity, is 30%, compared to the share of in the Asian LDC countries like Bangladesh and so on that the report discusses, where domestic ownership of the financial sector is between 70 and 80%.
Although Ghana is not counted amongst least developed countries, the report suggests growth does not change the economy structurally for development.
And it's not a good story. I don't think we have pursued a useful growth path, whether as a country or internationally. Otherwise, we will not be talking about a post-MDG international development agenda which prioritizes things that the MDG completely ignored, missed out on, deprioritized, marginalized, and so on and so forth. We're in a different, these are realities for us. We have a situation where we don't have a dynamic, self-sustaining development path. So whatever we have done, you can have become middle income 50 times over if you want. If you do not have a sustainable development path, you haven't done anything. And that's why you're still sitting in a country where you cannot even meet your minimum sanitation needs. And cholera and hundreds of people are dying like flies. This is a scandal or an emergency at any level. And it is being treated like an everyday thing. When the public and everybody becomes inured to death on such scale, it tells you are not going forward, you are going backwards.
The NDPC, meanwhile, says Ghana is on track to achieving growth with sustainable development.
We want to sustain that transformation agenda that we have put ahead of us. Over the period, we've been exporting just commodities. Can we process? And if we need to process, what do we need to do? Government business is not to be in business. So the challenge for us is to provide an enabling environment that will help private sector to grow. Infrastructure deficit is a challenge, it's a huge challenge, and that is one key area that we need to resolve. With energy crisis and all that around us, it will be a big challenge for us to sustain it, and we need to fix that aspect of the economy.
The LCD report 2014 meanwhile insists the performance of the least developed countries will largely determine the success or failure of the whole post-2015 development agenda to eradicate poverty by 2030. Abigail Adamakwinchi for Joy News.
The District Chief Executive for Lambusi Kani, Bom Kofi Diaka, has stated the vision of the government is to create opportunities for all irrespective of where one resides or his social status. He made the statement when he presented items worth 3,400 Ghana cedis to 10 students of the WA School for the Deaf, from where Rafiq Salam sent this report.
District, municipal and metropolitan assemblies are enjoined to cede 2% of their common fund to people living with disabilities. However, assemblies find it difficult to do this. The district chief executive for Lambusi Kani, Bom Kofi Diaka, has decided to do this his own way by supporting people with disabilities who are out of school due to their parents' inability to pay for them. He so far succeeded in enrolling some of such brilliant but needy children in the WA School for the Deaf. The DCE, in addition to getting them into school, got them items on the prospectus amounting to 3,400 Ghana cedis with funds from the Disability Fund of the Assembly.
I realized that the way the Disability Fund is managed is not the best. So I decided to come up with a different project altogether, where I've gone around myself to identify the physically challenged people living with disability, the various schools, some at home at assembly section. I announced that if you have people like that in the house, bring them. So I am here today to present new students. I've been able to acquire their prospectus. I brought them here. I've had fun for them. Already some are also here. I'm here to support them. This is not coming from my pocket, it's coming from the Disability Fund that His Excellency wants us to use for people to benefit.
The headmaster of the WA School for the Deaf, Bambina Samuel Babino, thanked the DCE for the kind gesture, but expressed worry about the attitude of some parents towards children with disabilities.
Attitude of the parents toward the children is not the best, because they feel that these are second-rate human beings. Let's take care of the good ones. Then later on, if there's time, we take care of those less human beings. I think that's the attitude of the parents. But I think we have to move from this area. So I'm happy that the chief executive has come this afternoon to present these items on behalf of his children. It's very good. But I also pray that during their assembly sessions, they will carry the message to our people, so that those of them who are there and have not yet seen the light, because there are still some people there, even while here. Someone came and he was thinking that this was a private school and he wanted to get accommodation for the child before bringing the child. So there are still people in the hiding elsewhere.
Rafiq Salam's report from WA.
Do business now. And Ghana's Energy Ministry has given notice that the ongoing load shedding will be extended to all industrial zones across the country from next Monday, December 1, 2014. The new arrangement is expected to continue till the end of the year. This latest development in the country's severe power rationing exercise, according to a document intercepted by myjoyonline.com, is in response to Ghana's worsening power supply challenges. It is also to mitigate the impact of the frequent power outages experienced by companies located outside the industrial zones. The document further indicates that prospect for Ghana's power supply for the rest of the year looks bleak. The load shedding exercise to Ghana's industrial zones would have begun last Monday if not for the intervention of the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI. A source at AGI told myjoyonline.com the association has held meetings with the Energy Ministry where it was agreed that the load shedding exercise should start next week to allow the industries to make the necessary preparations. The AGI had been pushing for exclusion of industries and businesses from the ongoing load shedding exercise due to rising production cost. A load shedding schedule for industrial zones, steel companies and the mines is expected to be published soon to guide work and production schedules. Finance Minister Seth Terkper has debunked reports that proceeds from the $1 billion Eurobond have been misapplied. He says apart from the $250 million from the bond used for the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, the remainder is in the country's account in New York to be invested in other projects.
Take my word that the Eurobond money is not missing. The Eurobond money, except for what we have spent so far, is sitting in the New York account of Bank of Ghana. We went to Parliament and said and gave areas where we're going to use the money. We said we would use approximately 200 for short-term refinancing of debt. We said we use about 250 for capital expenditure because we don't want to continue depending on treasury bills to be paying our capital expenditure. It's expensive, it's not efficient. It leads to the domestic, businesses not getting, credit because government is taking all the credits from the markets. And we said we would use another 200, approximately 280 million, 89 or 290 if you like, to what we call counterpart funding. I just mentioned EXIM. So far, frankly, at the time the news, came out, we had spent, barely, 80 million of the amount. Remember that the Ghana Infrastructure Fund is coming into effect next year. So the money for the 250 is in New York. We borrowed from various sources, including overdrafts that Bank of Ghana provided, to continue some of the capital projects that we would have used the Eurobond to finance if we had done it earlier. So we are doing a reconciliation with Bank of Ghana and other institutions that gave bridging loans so that we can reimburse those eligible expenditures.
Sir Tekpe, who was addressing the Institute of Financial and Economic Journalists, IFEJ, in Accra, also indicated that the ministry was undertaking structural reforms in the payroll system to ensure efficiency.
We are working with the Public Services Commission, the Office of Head of Civil Service, Ghana Education Service, Health Service, the services, local government service, to restore the human resource management system that we used to have manually, which was called Establishment Secretariat. So we want to restore the system electronically so that if you want to come into the public service, do your application online. After all, if you are going for visa, you do it online. These days, everything is mostly online. If you are going to be promoted, and once you are promoted, the paperwork should be done online. That way, we will get the updates for the teacher who was recruited. The appointment letter will come electronically with an automatic update and information to the controller. The controller will have the electronic ceilings, which is the reason why she has to issue the financial clearance with the Ministry of Finance, because in the absence of a system, we want to make sure also that your institution is not exceeding the budget. But if you have a human resource management system, the system may not even permit you, to send that information if you are required to recruit 20 people and you are recruiting 22.
He assured that although government is projecting a low growth, the future of the economy looks brighter than doom with the mitigating measures put in place in the 2015 budget.
Sports. Now, Ghana ace Kwadwo Asamoah has been ruled out of the 2015 African Cup of Nations after his club Juventus confirmed the wingback could or would rather require surgery to correct a knee problem. Asamoah will be sidelined for 6 to 8 weeks, meaning that he will be unavailable for competitive football in early 2015. The talented midfielder suffered the injury during Juventus' 3-2 win over Olympiacos on November 4 and aggravated it when he played through the pain barrier against Empoli. Kwadwo Asamoah will fly to Barcelona next Tuesday for arthroscopic surgery to repair cartilage in his left knee after reporting continued pain in the region. Asamoah was on the verge of playing his 5th consecutive African Cup of Nations tournament. He has made 6 Serie A appearances for Juventus this season. Now, the newly appointed chairman of the Black Stars Management Committee, George Afriyie, has described the task of leading the Black Stars as arduous. Ex-chairman President Kwesi Nyantakyi handed the baton after deliberations at an executive committee meeting on Thursday, which heralded a Liberty Professionals appointment. George Afriyie, in an exclusive chat with Joy Sports, revealed the position handed him is a testing one.
Well, I know it was going to be a very difficult task because one timing, coming from the Brazil fiasco and considering the fact that still some Ghanaians have not forgiven the Black Stars, but I believe in challenges as a young man, though I'm not that young anyway. As a man, you must be able to face and accept challenges and be able to turn things around. So I accepted it, and then I believe that together as a team, we'll be able to bring back the smiles back to the faces of the sporting public. But the first thing I see as a team is to make sure that we can win back the support of the fans. That's the most important thing.
Meanwhile, ex-Under-17 Management Committee Chairman Wilfred Osei Palmer has been justifying his reappointment as Under-20 Chairman despite overseeing the age cheating scandal that has disqualified Ghana from the next African Under-17 Championship in Niger.
What I would say is that this calls for hard work. It means that whatever you did at the U17 level has been acknowledged and recognized. When we say we are into development, it's a very significant word that many people do not understand. It's not about the results, but it's about those that you are able to turn into future stars. We played Cameroon here, both home and away, and Ghanaians were witnesses to the kind of team that we put in place. Unfortunately, MRI took us out. That should tell you that whoever was instrumental in bringing that team up did an excellent job. I'm happy to have been part of that particular group. I say kudos to my technical bench and other members that made that possible. It wasn't that easy, especially what we went through to play the first leg in Cameroon, but yet we were able to sail through. Having accomplished that, you could see clearly that as those who are developing administrators, there will be the need for us to put in place a good succession plan. And that is exactly what we have tabled on the floor.
And that's it for sports.